The 1930s and 40s took in the end of the reign of George V and the beginning of George VI's reign, separated by less than a year by the reign of the uncrowned King Edward VIII. It included the war years, which for everyone completely changed life as we knew it. Habits, attitudes, and expectations before the war were totally different from those after the war. Compared to today, life in the 1930s was in every way a different world. The house I was born in was in Levitt's Yard, Arlesey. But whilst I was still a baby, we moved to 104 Newtown, which some 10 years later became Hitchin Road. Both houses still stand today, and the verge on which we played is still a grass verge. The evidence of the horse-drawn traffic in the foreground has by now been cleared away. Except for around 6 o'clock, when all the people came home from work on their bicycles, we had the roads to ourselves. Although not shown in the photograph, outside our house was a gas street lamp. At dusk, the lamplighter came and lit the lamp. He was called Scroggins and walked with a crutch like Long John Silver. And we children used to hide out of the way from him. The houses had no electricity, and gas lighting was only for downstairs. The water tap was in the scullery. Cooking was done on the range in the living room. The toilet was an outside privy. To go to bed, you had to take a candle, and in winter, a hot water bottle, usually wrapped in a sock. The white gates, marked with an arrow, led to the cement works, which ran night and day, making a continual rumbling sound. The works produced about 800 tons of cement per week. Much of this went by rail, but at 5 o'clock we would watch the lorries leaving with their loads. They were not brightly coloured like in the photos, since they were all grey and covered in cement dust. The quarry, from which both chalk and cement was obtained, eventually filled up with water when the works closed, and today is a leisure site called the Blue Lagoon. My earliest memory that I can put a date to was seeing the Graf Zeppelin, which visited Cardington in May 1930. It flew over the village on its way from London. My memory is that it was very large, over a furlong, 250 yards in length, and very noisy, having 5 Maybach engines. At this time, there were 2 British airships, the R-100, designed by Barnes Wallis, flew to Canada and back. The R-101, a government venture, was ill-fated and crashed on its maiden flight to India in October 1930, and 48 passengers lost their lives. I remember being taken to see the mass grave covered in floral tributes in Cardington churchyard. During the war, barrage balloons used for the defence of towns were made and tested at Cardington. We used to cycle there to watch the activity. One day we saw a Sarah Cloud amphibian, which was a unique and unusual plane. The massive sheds which housed the airships still stand today. If you folded this wrapper carefully, you could make a naughty word. Every Thursday, as I went home from school for lunch, there were no school dinners in those days, a steam lorry like this was waiting outside the Prince of Wales pub while the driver had his lunch. When I went back to school, he was usually about to start off to his next port of call. I would run behind the lorry, keeping up with it as far as I could. You may think it odd that John Wayne is not listed with the Cowboys, but the Duke was not recognized as a cowboy star until he appeared in Stagecoach in 1939. He played bit parts in westerns, but mostly he was a cop, detective, or just a tough guy in non-cowboy films. We used to see him every week in a serial about the French Foreign Legion. At the end of every episode, the heroine and or the hero were in a dangerous predicament, which somehow they escaped from in the next episode. John Wayne was the hero. We would stick handkerchiefs under our caps at the back so that they hung down to cover our necks. And then we would become legionnaires, acting out the daring do that we had seen in the film. What can I do for England that does so much for me? One of her faithful children I can and I will be. I kept the Silver Jubilee souvenir book until 1982, when we were flooded and it was destroyed. What became of the mug, I have no idea. These are some of the planes that could be seen in the skies in the 1930s. At the top right is a gypsy moth, such as used by Amy Johnson, the famous airwoman who broke several records flying solo to South Africa and Australia. Over on the left-hand side is another gypsy moth, since this was a very popular plane at the time. Below it is a Avro 504K, which was a fighter in the Great War, but was subsequently used by the Air Force as a training machine until superseded by the Avro Tutor. The yellow machine in the center is a Miles Magister, which was used by the Air Force for training pilots in the use of monoplanes. Below it is a Westland Widgeon, which won the King's Cup air race. The silver plane on the right-hand side is a Blackburn Bluebird, which was made in Leeds. The machine at the bottom right-hand corner is a Cierva Autogyro. This is not a helicopter, since the main rotor was not powered by the engine, but driven by the wind. The machine had a takeoff of about 5 yards and could descend almost vertically. Red stains on the carpet, red stains on the knife. Oh, Dr. Buck Ruxton, you murdered your wife. You saw the maid watching, you feared she would tell. So, Dr. Buck Ruxton, you killed her as well.